Our first guest speaker is from Belfast. He has been active in organising Croisbhealaí Co-operative, which operates as a café and a space for progressive political parties. The aim of the cooperative is to provide an alternative social space under workers' control. I'd like you all to give a warm welcome to Hugh Corcoran.
Bhí sé páirtí go seo dhéanamh go hanga ar an drothar mar leabhar na am ní bhéh muid abalta tá mé buartha faoi sin. Unfortunately, due to time limitations, we can't do this bilingually, so I'm just apologising to any Irish speakers who expected that. I'm just going to talk a bit about an introduction to workers' cooperatives, what they mean and their history, and also try to go in, if there's time, to the practicalities and ins and outs of a workers' cooperative, how to start one, and what it's like working in one. The basic principles behind a workers' cooperative is total workers' control of an enterprise, be it service, manufacturing or otherwise. This is also combined with the principle of cooperation among workers and understanding that each has their own skills and talents to contribute to the production of a product or service, and therefore each must have their equal say in the workplace. To me, it's an extension of the ideas behind trade unionism. It has particularly good propaganda value, and it's making great advances in the confidence building of the working class, of the individual workers involved in them. The idea is that when workers will take control of their own workplace, that they'll realise they alone have the labour power and skills necessary to produce services and products without the need of the capitalist class. The workers' cooperative is structured on a one share, one vote basis, which means each member has an equal share in the business and therefore an equal vote in the running of it. It can take the form of a horizontal structure where there's no management in place and it depends completely on workers' solidarity and cooperation, or a triangular structure where management is democratically elected in positions of responsibility within the workplace, and that's important to point that it's responsibility and not positions of power over their workers. The history and importance of workers' cooperatives in social movements and revolutionary struggle throughout the world must not be underestimated either. The ideas of workers' cooperation are indeed natural to society, and we find this in our own history in Ireland, with structure developed by rural communities for collectively farming land, digging turf, building structures, which we call the mehel. Now, the formal workers' cooperative structure was developed in England by the Chartist movement, which also developed the idea of a general strike. Ideas of workers' control and cooperation, or collective work efforts, were prominent in the Paris Commune, in the Russian Revolution in the form of Soviets or workers' councils, and in the Spanish Civil War when anarchists, syndicalists and communists organised communities into cooperatives and collectives outside of the fascist territories. In the modern day, workers' cooperatives exist in strength in northern Italy, where they were set up by the partisan anti-fascist resistance. They proved so sustainable in rural life that in the area known as Red Bologna, they still exist today, 60, 70 years later. In the Basque Country, that's home to one of the biggest workers' cooperatives in the world, which is now the 7th largest company in the Spanish state. And also on smaller community levels, they have many there and in Catalonia, which are basically based on small cafes and social centres like ourselves. By far the most radical and revolutionary example I've come across is in Colombia, where trade union leaders and political activists have organised urban workers and rural peasants alike into huge cooperative movements in order to take control of public services and industry. One example given to me was a town which was initially built by cooperatives and then inhabited, and jobs given to each member of the community within cooperatives. Their wages went collectively into a cooperative bank, which generated capital for more investment in the community, public services and new cooperative enterprise. And they became so powerful that Yankee and multinational companies in the area took the cooperative network to court under allegations of having a monopoly over public services when the workers took control of water, roads, school, health, housing, agriculture and production. Cuba is also looking at workers' cooperatives at the moment in an attempt to give more control back to communities on a smaller level, but still under workers' control. That's another argument that needs to be had, whether that's progressive or not. As members of a revolutionary organisation like Éirígí, which aims to create a society based on the idea and principles of sharing the fruits of their labour, it is of the utmost importance for Éirígí to develop a strong and progressive strategy towards workers' cooperatives. In my view, the Irish Revolution cannot be realised without the Irish working class. And to do this, the working class must be self-disciplined, organised and confident of their power. This will not be achieved unless we build a strong movement together with the trade unions and existing workers' cooperatives, which directs this radical form of organised labour towards a political goal. Now, I'm going to move on now and speak a little bit about the practical experience of setting up a cooperative and the theory behind that. Setting up a cooperative is a viable alternative for working class people in this current crisis of capitalism which we're witnessing. Mass unemployment in working class areas is leaving huge amounts of skilled workers idle. Not only does this have financial consequences for the workers and their families, but also psychological ones. Harnessing our combined skills to produce and create ourselves collectively as workers for our communities is an achievable goal and one which must be pursued. One thing we must be aware of is that starting or joining a workers' cooperative does not mean reform of capitalism or an alternative to socialism, but a tool which must be used to prove our collective effort is the most valuable part of the production and distribution processes, and not the guidance or capital provided by those with conflicting class interests to our own. It is important to point out that in any private enterprise, no matter how philanthropic or socially aware our employers are, they will always have conflicting class interests to those of the employee. The workers' cooperative model of organisation attempts to expel some of those contradictions in our working lives by forming a model where the labour put into the business is to the benefit and interests of all who work there. From my own experience, there are many contradictions within the cooperative model to deal with when attempting to create a more equal work environment and socially productive enterprise within a capitalist system. For instance, we must make profit and to some extent speculate to ensure we continue to pay wages, but the benefits far outweigh the contradictions and difficulties. Problems arise with organisation of workers, obviously, and the idea of self-organisation can be so foreign to some workers today in this neoliberal nightmare and we're experiencing, that workers simply search for direction and cannot function confidently on values of solidarity and cooperation alone. Workers are no longer confident of their skills and are told that they are responsible for unemployment and that retraining is the answer. In most cases, retraining is not the answer, but instead giving these skills so greatly needed a value in our society, and of course a value to the workers who possess those skills. We therefore may need individuals to direct workers when setting up a cooperative, but the end result must always be the empowerment of workers and the eventual realisation that it's the working class who have built this earth and us alone who should control it. On a practical level, all we can do as workers at the moment is observe how our combined skills create everything in our society, and therefore how blindingly obvious it should be that we should control our workplaces democratically. This must be done hand in hand with the trade union movement and must be fought on a class basis. The objective is not to make capitalism easier to live with for working people, but to destroy it and its institutions and cultures and create a society which serves our own class needs. Now, talking briefly about the trade union movement. I would implore everybody here to, if you're not a member of a trade union, to join one. And I'd like to take the opportunity at the moment to say that I've left registration forms for the Independent Workers Union, which is a union which refuses to accept social partnership and a corporatist model of working with our employers and our government. This corporatist model is the ideology of fascism, and it needs to be opposed. So I would implore everybody to join a union that fights for, on a class basis, for the working class alone. And if you're not going to get involved in a workers' cooperative, to at least join a union and join that struggle. Now, I'll go on. I would also implore anybody to support existing workers' cooperatives and also encourage others to take up similar action in starting their own, or encouraging comrades and friends around them to start their own. Workers' cooperatives should be used at every opportunity, whether it be functions, talks, printing, design, lunch, books, furniture, housing. We should not only have workers' cooperatives in these industries, but if they exist, we should almost have an all-out boycott on businesses behaving in any other manner. Until we as workers send a clear message, both to the international bourgeoisie and the petty bourgeoisie in our own communities, that the practice of exploitation of labour will no longer be supported by the working class, and that we demand the necessary alternative. Every day in a workers' cooperative is a victory for the working class, and in the true spirit of solidarity, you as a party must support workers today involved in that fight, because, comrades, without your support, we cannot succeed in creating a working class alternative. So I'd ask you all to go home, start planning in your own communities and workplaces for a future organisation of these cooperatives, and support solidarity with them. If workers' cooperatives exist in your town or cities, use them, and not just as a show of face. Give them militant support, because they every day struggle not only to fight for their rights and their futures, but your rights and your futures. Most importantly, help to strengthen and build this form of resistance to the exploitation and misery of working life under capitalism, by accepting no less than complete workers' control. And in the absence of this, always ask, why not complete workers' control? So, Gurmila Maigov.